welcome to the Booker T. Washington Memorial. We are at Smith Mountain Lake, Virginia, and we are truly blessed to be in this area and have such a great memorial here. This has become a national park, and it's 200 acres of the tobacco plantation where Booker T. Washington was born and spent his childhood home. So walk with me as we continue to tour the grounds and go over and view some of these properties. So Booker T. Washington, as you probably know, was born into slavery. He didn't even know his birthday when he was growing up, but he was, they surmised that he was born in 1856. He lived here on this plantation with his mother and a brother and a sister, and they really were impoverished in poverty here. His mother was the cook for the plantation, for the Burroughs family, which ran this farm. Mrs. Burroughs was running the farm after her husband passed away just before the Civil War began. So Booker was in charge of a lot of things here on the plantation. He had to haul water and bring that to the other workers. He also had to bring horse loads of produce and supplies back. So he writes in his book, Up from Slavery, that his boyhood home was here, and he lived here until he was 9 years old. He never really knew who his father was, so it's said that father was a white man, but they're not sure. So when he was growing up, he was known only in the area as Booker, did not have a last name. So if you look at the slave records that they have here at the Visitor Center, it actually showed that they had one Negro boy that was valued at $400, and he was known as simply Booker. So he and his mother and siblings lived here on the farm and plantation for till he was 9 years old. And it was a lot of hard work. So as we continue to walk around the plantation here, so Booker T, we're gonna walk up onto his birthplace cabin. Now it was, the original one was burned in the 1960s, unfortunately. So they have rebuilt some of these buildings here. So there is his birthplace, the little cabin he lived in, he spoke of, has a dirt floor, and he and his mother and siblings lived there. And it was really a lot of starvation. They only had, during the harvest, they would have potatoes and a few things to eat. Again, his mother was the cook for the main house plantation, so she was able to give them, scraps here and there to get by, but he went many days very hungry. So we'll go up and take a peek here in the cabin and get a look at what it was like. All right, so we're going up to the little house that was where Booker T. Washington lived. So if you look inside, you'll see originally it had a dirt floor, but it was, he talked about it being very drafty and cold in the winter and very, very hot and humid in the summer. So he and his siblings simply slept on the floor. It was this size. They stored vegetables underneath the floor, did have the fireplace, and where his mother cooked all the meals. So Booker T lived here. We're going to go out towards the tobacco barn. But again, he lived here for his boyhood home. Then it was announced at the end of the Civil War that the slaves were free. So here we are on one of the hiking trails that go off through the woods, and very well maintained. And we're headed up towards the old tobacco barn, which is the oldest building still left on this property that's original. Kind of has a silvery roof made of wood, and again, the emphasis here was on harvesting tobacco. across a little creek and heading up to the tobacco barn now. You see a lot of these in this area, tobacco barns, off in the field, and a lot of times they're not in great condition, but this one is. So, and it is original, so it's worth seeing. So we'll take a peek here at the tobacco barn on this trail. It's dark in there. It's quite high for hanging tobacco. It actually took 2 years after the war ended for them to be notified. So the Union soldiers actually came and gathered everyone together here at the plantation, and were able to gather and tell everyone that they were indeed free. So they were released from their duties here, and then Booker T and his mother and stepfather, who was Wash Ferguson, was his stepfather. So at that time, he adopted his name and took on the Washington for his last name. They all then left this plantation and went by wagon for several hundred miles to West Virginia, where he then worked with his stepfather in the salt mines. He and his brother, it was very hard labor that they worked there in West Virginia. So he then stayed there for, I think, approximately 5 years, where he worked in those salt mines, but his plan, his dream was always higher education. He took jobs working with the woman owner there, the house they lived in West Virginia. He did housekeeping, and she realized his hunger to learn, so she helped him begin to read. He collected books, had his own little library in a box, and he tried to teach himself the alphabet and the English language and learn to read. His dream later was to come back to Virginia and go to the Hampton Academy in Hampton, Virginia. So it took him 5 years from the time he went to West Virginia, but he actually walked the entire 500 miles from West Virginia to Hampton. So it was quite a trek, and he was pretty disheveled by the time he got there and did not have hardly any money in his pocket, but he was able to unload trucks off the ship, supplies off the ship there in Hampton when he got there. So he was able to earn enough money for food and to get to the academy, where they allowed him to join. Even though he really did not have money to pay for tuition, he worked as a janitor and was able to work his way up and be admitted to the academy. So Booker T. Washington has a long history of wanting to seek higher education and promote equal opportunities for African Americans. So he then was able to complete his time there at Hampton Academy and was asked years later to form the Tuskegee Institute in Alabama. That was quite a feat for him as well. There was a long story about how he had to build it from scratch and had the students help build the academy. They even made the bricks themselves out of clay, and it eventually became a great institute for African Americans, actually to teach the teachers how to teach African Americans. So you can read more about the history of Booker T. Washington, but we are very fortunate to have this in our backyard. There are events here that go on throughout the year, so I would urge you to come on out and take a look at this memorial. There is one building that is the original tobacco barn from the 1880s that is on the back side of the property. But there are 2 miles of hiking trails all around this memorial in the park. So it's a great place. You can bring your dog. You can, as long as the dogs are leashed, there are trails that go all throughout the property. So come out and explore this piece of history here at Smith Mountain Lake.